So I'm going to put, with this orange, this is called crinkle. It when it melts, you get this crinkle. It just, the heat makes it do a crinkle thing, which I like. So I'm going to put a little piece of this in here. So as you can see, basically, I'm cutting lots of little pieces of glass and composing this. And that's why these little things actually take a lot of time. And I usually make about 20 pairs at a time, so I'm spending maybe a good 8 or 10 hours making a tray of earrings to go in the kiln. It's not cost efficient to do one pair at a time because, you know, the energy that it takes. And so you try to make a quantity. And so I'm going to put this little piece in there. And it depends, if you put it on one way is different than the other. So it depends on, you want to put them both on the same way or they'll be different and then they'll be boo-boos. And I do make boo-boos sometimes. So it's kind of tricky working with the glass because it's hard to tell what side is what. That gives you a different effect. If you do it on the back side, it won't be a crinkle. Okay, so now I'm going to put something else. I'm going to put a pattern. The dichroic glass. To buy some glass. Also comes in patterns. Okay. So I'm going to take some of these. I'm going to cut some squares. Well, not many. And actually this is graduated. I don't know whether you can see it on the camera, but it'll have pink up here and maybe greeny gold down there. And that also changes colors in the kiln. So that's something else that can make you a little crazy when you're trying to match something.
Can you explain this idea of graduated on the glass?
The color wheel usually goes from blues to like yellows, and then you have reds and greens and blues that go from one end of the color spectrum to the other. And they try to put all the colors. This dichroic glass was invented, it's actually an aeronautic process that somebody discovered. They use on airplane windows, the way they coat them. And somebody discovered that they could do it on glass for glass artists to work with, and it would give you these two different colors. So
but do you have any idea what color you'll get?
yeah, I try to, like if I do these two, they'll probably be the same color. But if I go down here, it's going to be a different color. If I cut a square from down there and put it on and one up here, it's probably going to be two different colors. So you have to kind of try to look in the light. It can be difficult depending on, this is a big square pattern, so it's a little easier. Something like, you probably can't see this because the pattern's so little. That's hard. This is a hard piece to figure.
That's purple to green
Purple to green. And sometimes it's blue. And sometimes it comes out gold. That one I don't like working with if I'm trying to make something specific. Okay. So I'm going to put these on here. And you just put a tiny bit of glue. And then that's going to be it for these earrings. So I would try to make another 20 pairs before I fire it. And usually, if I start this at this time of day, about 2 o'clock, I might put the kiln on at 9 o'clock. Because actually all that wire work and everything, it really takes a long time to do. I usually do all the bases first, and then I start cutting the little pieces of glass and the gluing it together. And that's what takes a long time.
Is it only one time in the kiln, or can you take it out, put some add to, and put back?
It's pretty, you can fire like that, but I just do one time. And then also something else with the glass that sometimes I have to deal with, because I like my things to have hard edges as opposed to something like this is rounder. That stayed in the kiln about 10 minutes longer than this. So everything is melted in. If I had left these in, this would all melt together and it wouldn't have the straight lines, and it would be more like that. And it would be rounder.
How do you determine how much you'll price the earrings for?
I have always tried to keep my earrings at the same price, even though silver has gone up. I increased the necklace prices. I just try to, they've been $45, I think, since I've started. And the cost of the fine silver has increased over the last 3 years about 400%. It's just a big, and the silver hooks and everything. So I basically figure out how much glass I use, and I just do the math. I do square inch, and the dichroic glass costs more than the plain glass. The dichroic glass is like $1.50 a square inch, and the little plain color glass is more like maybe 9 cents a square inch. So I just have to figure out the math, figure out how much everything costs, and then how much time I put into it. The time factor when you're doing this as a living, it's not the amount of your hourly wage is based on your business expenses for the year divided by how many hours are in the year is how that's figured out. So somebody who's not traveling, I travel a lot. I spend a lot on travel, hotel, shipping, airfare, gas. My expenses are more than somebody who might be doing it part-time and at home. So you may see a huge discrepancy in prices, but there is a lot of time. So the hours that I put into actually creating the jewelry, might be more than somebody, well, definitely be more than somebody who's buying beads. So sometimes customers will come, like a new customer, they may come and say, how come they cost that much? What, I don't get it. And most people, though, really do have an eye, and they really, most people understand that it's something, they might not know that I actually made the pieces. They might think that I bought those online from somebody. But once they found out that how they're made, then they understand that really took a long time to make, so. But that's the glass process pretty much. I have a lot of glass pieces, and I buy most of my glass out of state because it's cheaper. There are some places in town, but they're very expensive now. So I buy from different glass companies, and I just love it, and people love it.
Do you buy most of the glass in the United States?
Yeah, out west, a lot of the companies. So this will end up, after it's fired, it'll be looking more like that. And then the fine silver I buy raw, I buy it in coils, and that's what goes in the earrings. That's what goes in here. I cut the wire and glued it in before it melted. This was like all one big piece. I use it for my bracelets. I put the links in there, and it's fine silver as opposed to sterling silver, because that's what the kiln, it can withstand the heat of that high temperature. Sterling silver doesn't do well in the kiln. Glass bead making process involves rods of glass, which you purchase in colors, and these are lots of different colors of glass. You use a mandrel, which is a steel rod that you actually put in the flame, and then you take your, I'll make an ivory color one thing. You take your glass, and as you melt it, and you have them both in the fire at the same time, and this is what will create the hole. After the bead cools down, you can slip it off of this release. The glass is a very clean medium, so you have to keep all of your glass clean, or you'll have dirt in your beads. So basically, before I work, I have to kind of just kind of wipe everything off a little bit, just to make sure it hasn't gotten dust. And you have tools that can help you do certain things with your glass. When it's hot and molten, you can actually take tools like this and make designs in it. You can like rake it and make the glass move around. So you have tools that look like dentist tools for your glass. And then you can make things that are called canes. And you take thin pieces of glass and make little designs, and then you can add them to your beads as a separate element. I also use, this is dichroic glass for beads, and it's the same type of glass that you use with the fused glass, but it's the compatible for bead making. So when I melt this on top of a bead, I'll get silver.
Now, is it a gradient?
No, this is just all silver. Some of them do come in gradients. When I'm through making my bead, I'm going to put it in this container that has vermiculite, which will keep it from fracturing. The beads are so hot that you have to cool them immediately, or they'll crack, a stress crack. After it's cooled down, then I can take it out and twist it off of the mandrel. Then I have to anneal it in my big kiln for about 8 hours, and that gets all the atoms in the right relationship so that you don't have a crack down the road. So glass is just, when you melt it, you're making it fluid, and then it goes back to a hard state, and that's why you have to do the annealing, because all the molecules don't always go back the right way. So you basically have to reheat it really slow up to a certain temperature, and then bring it down, and then all the molecules are in the right place. So I'm just going to make a simple bead, I hope. And I'm hoping this is a new canister. I hope this is the one that I just bought, because this is MAP gas. I'm not set up for propane fuel, which you can have a big tank of propane fuel, and that'll last longer. I'm not good with having that kind of gas in my house, so I'm happy with my MAP canister. It'll last about 25 minutes, and then it'll go cold, and then I need to finish my bead. Then it'll run out, but that's good enough for what I'm doing. So let me turn it on. First thing I have to do is heat up my mandrel. It has to be hot enough to accept the glass. So I heat this up. It's going to get red at a certain point. And at the same time, I'm going to start heating up the glass. You have to be careful. You don't want to heat it up too fast, or it'll chip off and it could flick onto me. You see, I don't know whether you can tell, that's getting red. When it's red, then I can start putting the glass on, and I'm waiting for the glass. The glass has to get red also. So you continuously move this mandrel until the whole section is hot and ready to get the glass. So now I'm going to put the glass lower down, because I need that to have hotter heat. The mandrel is ready, so now I'm getting the glass ready. You can see it's turning red, and it's going to get soft. And I got to turn both of them. You have to keep turning them as you're making it. You have to keep the heat consistent on the glass. If I take this out of the flame now, it'll get hard immediately. So I'm going to start adding it to the mandrel. So you start wrapping it around, you feed it on, and you just keep feeding it on until you have the amount of glass that you want on there. And the more you have on, of course, the bigger your bead's going to be. You have to be careful. You want the ends to be good, so you keep adding on from top to bottom. I'm keeping the mandrel close to the flame. I don't want it right in it, but I want it to be close enough so that it's still hot enough and the glass will be not fracturing. So you kind of wind the glass on until you get the amount on that you want. And I'm turning the mandrel the whole time. You have to keep the whole piece heated. So you have to keep turning it because you don't want one side hotter than the other. Now at this point, I'm going to add another color to it, but I'm going to kind of get it in there and while I'm heating this up. And I always heat the new glass high. You don't want to put it hot immediately or it could flick off on you. But you can see this bead here is safe as long as it's in that heat. Now while I'm going to bring this down a little higher. The area that you have the glass on in your flame, there's different hotnesses. So up here is less hot than down here. And while I'm working with this, I'll move that up. And I'm going to get this, you see how this is starting to get round? The way you get your bead round is by turning it. I'm eventually going to flatten it because I like flat beads, but you can have a round bead and you can make it any shape you want it. So this is getting close to where I need it to add to the other bead. It's getting hot